How's it going, everybody? I hope everybody's having a great final stretch of their semester. Quick video here just to sort of get us all on the same page regarding week number 9 of English 108. So this is really funny because here I am teaching technical writing and I'm breaking some of my own rules. And this is why getting user feedback is so important. So there was a little bit of confusion about the transition from week 8 to week 9. And I'm going to take full responsibility for it because, one of the things as a writer that we have to come to terms with is that it's easy to blame our reader for not reading closely enough or for not putting in the effort or whatever it is. But if multiple users have the same problem or readers have the same problem, there's a good chance that it's your fault. And so I'm pretty sure this is on me here, and I can make this more clear in future semesters. But there was some confusion about whether or not I wanted your drafts of your instructions, and there was even some confusion about what exactly I meant by a user test. So I hope this video will clarify those things to give you a sense of what we're doing and where we're heading. So first of all, I don't need your drafts of your instructions. That's why there was no Dropbox, but I probably didn't make that clear enough. I wanted you to be drafting your instructions so that you would have something to continue to work on in week 9. So I hope that you use the time of week 8 to do that. And so that's why there was no Dropbox. Some of you submitted it through email, and that's great, and I'm glad I got to take a look at those, and that gives me some sense of where we're at. But what's most important is that you have a set of instructions that you can user test in week 9. And in my face-to-face class, I talk about user testing and usability testing and user experience testing all the time. So it's a language that my students have heard me use and I've explained and defined many times. What I realize, and this is the irony, is that I probably didn't explain extremely well what a user test is and why I'm asking you to do it. I think I implied it, but I didn't explicitly define it. So in technical writing, one of the tools that we have in our toolkit, aside from getting feedback from a peer and having a sort of peer review experience, is to actually get our users, the folks who are going to use our documentation and our instructions and our writing, and we actually test it on them. And so we kind of get to see how they interact with it. User and usability testing and user experience testing, which are all basically the same thing. It's basically getting a user to engage with a document or a piece of writing and watching them closely and observing them and taking down notes about their questions and their problems is really important. And it's really prominent in web development, for instance. So and actually in web app development, it's very common for folks who are building a website, say you're a bank and you're developing a new website, to get a series of users together and put them through their paces and have them, figure out how to pay their bill online and how to check their statements and how to file a grievance. And you just get to watch and see how a user actually interacts with your product or your document. And the advantage to that is that you actually get to sort of build around their experience, and you get to figure out where they get hung up, and you get to figure out maybe ways to make things more intuitive and easier to use. And we do that in technical writing too, and one of the places where it's really handy is in instructions. Because it's easy for us as the experts, the people coaching our users, it's easy for us to take for granted a user's knowledge. It's easy for us to just leave out a step that we take for granted or to not include a precise enough measurement. And so that's why we do user testing. And basically what a user test is, at its essence, is it's you putting your instructions and materials in front of somebody and watching them interact with it. And so there's a number of different methodologies for doing this, but principally what you're going to do is just pay attention to places where you can make your instructions better. And so part of that is listening to reader questions. So when you see that a reader has a question, you write it down, you figure out, how can I answer this in my instructions? Do I do it in the staging section? Can I write my steps or my directions more clearly? Can I be more precise? Can I give them a frame of reference? Can I use an analogy? And so we're just looking for problems that our user has, and then as technical writers, we're trying to find ways to solve those problems. And so that's basically what I want you to do. I want you to give your materials and your instructions to somebody, and I want you to watch them. And you're going to find places where you took for granted measurements or indicators of success or alerts. You're going to see, wow, that's a place where somebody could really mess this procedure up or they could hurt themselves. I really need to include an alert there that says, hey, don't do this or don't do that. And so you're going to get all sorts of valuable feedback, and it's an important skill for us because anytime we're writing a procedure, we need to run it through the ringer and we need to test it. Just like an engineer tests a prototype of a particular product, we want to do that with our instructions. And the case that I would make is that in the set of instructions that we analyzed for week number 8, the Toddy Colbert instructions, those were functional instructions. Don't get me wrong, somebody could definitely make a pot of coffee with those instructions. But what I'm trying to impress upon you is that they were not the most user-friendly or user-centered or best written instructions that they could have been, and I think part of that is because they didn't user test. They probably did not sit people down with the instructions and with the Toddy cold brew system and watch them, because they would have seen looks of consternation when people were like, geez, I don't know, are these beans coarsely ground, or geez, I don't know, can I make less than a full pot? And so what we're really trying to identify here are places where readers have to make decisions that we didn't anticipate, or where readers have to use their discretion and we didn't build that in. And so that's really what a user test is all about. And like I said, there's a million different methodologies for how we're going to conduct it. But what's most important to me is that you watch somebody really closely, you document their questions, you kind of pay attention to when they look confused or when they make an error, and you try to figure out ways that you can improve your instructions based on that. And and again, to go back to the irony of all this, is that as a teacher, which in some ways is really just an exercise in technical writing where I'm trying to share a very specific knowledge set with you, I have to constantly be revising my course materials and my approaches based on the user feedback that I get. And again, it's really easy for us when somebody makes a bonehead mistake making a cup of coffee with our brewing system to say, well, they just didn't read closely enough. But when we see patterns of mistakes or patterns of poor communication, we have to take that upon ourselves as the writer to make those types of revisions. So again, I want to apologize if I didn't make it clear enough in my week 8 checklist that I didn't want your instructions. I wanted you to hold on to those and user test those before you send those to me, because I want to be able to give you feedback on the most advanced draft that you have. And so that's just a lesson in technical writing. You kind of have to roll with the feedback that you're getting from your real users, because chances are there's a breakdown there. So the other thing I want to point out is that I've now posted 2 videos to our Blackboard week number 9 folder that take you through just a couple of approaches for creating useful digital drawings and diagrams. And one shows you how to use PowerPoint and how to add arrows and text and shapes to images in PowerPoint, and one shows you how to use Google Drawings. And I'm not going to mandate that you use images in your instructions. You don't have to. But I think it's a good idea. It's a good skill to develop. And I think that most of you will probably find that very helpful. And so that should give you some frame of reference about how to do that. If you need more instruction on that, I'm happy to pass along more resources, but it's really just an introductory video that shows you how to get an image from the web into the platform or into the software, and how to start manipulating it, how to start adding graphic elements like arrows and text and shapes and things like that, and then also how to save it, and hopefully how to upload it into your documents. And so I think you'll find that helpful, and I hope that taking that alongside your user tests, you'll be able to see places where, wow, it would be really helpful if I had an image that showed this or explained this more clearly. And the example that I use in the videos that I've produced is from the student-written instructions about how to tie a very particular fishing fly, and it shows you how to create a diagram of a fishing hook, because one of the things that we know about tying flies is that everything is predicated on sort of the landmarks or the anatomy of the fishing hook. And so that's what you use as your frame of reference or your reference points when you're tying, is put the material at the hook bend, or put the material quarter of an inch behind the hook eye, or wrap the entire length of the hook shank. Well, that's all great, and it's really helpful because it gives us landmarks. But if our reader doesn't know, the difference between the barb and the point and the bend and the shank and the eye, then it's really for naught. And so what I show you how to do in that video is how to create a quick diagram. And that can be really helpful when you're trying to explain the parts of a particular piece of equipment, or how to use a particular tool, or the relative locations of components, or any number of things. Sometimes a really quick, high-value image really helps. So that's where we're at. That's where we're headed. I hope that you can see that usability testing, user experience testing is really important. We constantly need to be developing and revising and refining our documents to meet the needs of our users. And I hope that you find it beneficial to actually watch somebody use your instructions. It's a different type of peer review, but it's a super helpful type of peer review, and it's really the best type because it's real-world application and experience, and it's going to show you immediately ways that you can improve your instructions. And I know for a fact that if you do this well, you'll come away with 5 to 10 things that you can immediately make more clear and more useful in your instructions. So that's what we're up against. Thanks for watching. Take care.